Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
Yo, it's your boy, the odd guy himself, Malik King Scott.
Hi, I'm Charlie Edwards.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 157 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined as always by the infamous, the elusive Mr. Ayaz Sumra. Ayaz, how you doing?
I'm good, Joey. Yourself?
Very good, my friend, very good. Right, let's dive straight into the review part of the show, Ayaz. It's funny because last week, Ayaz, you were actually at the back in terms of the prediction league, and now this week, with your correct predictions, it's all been twisted round. You'll have to wait and see, so stay tuned for the prediction league current standings that I'll get onto at the back end of the show. Let's start, though, in Russia. One fight to mention, or a couple fights to mention, on the World Boxing Super Series card that happened over in a place called Ekaterinburg in Russia. Like I say, top of the bill we had Zolani Tete, 27-3. He put his WBO World Bantamweight title on the line against Mikhail Aloyan, who was only 4-0 but was a real good amateur. The fight ended up going the full 12 and Zolani Tete was able to get the decision there. So quite an impressive win to go on the road and beat a real good amateur in the amateur's backyard of Russia. I thought that if it went to cards, you know, he could end up with a little bit of a kind of favoritism talking about Aloyan there. I think he'd have probably been done a favour by the judges. But yeah, they were pretty fair and they've gave it to Tete. Aloyan was down in the first round though, that is one thing. But then what ruled that out, Zolani Tete had a point deducted in the 10th round. But then also in the 11th round, Aloyan had a point deducted for holding. So yeah, 2 points deducted and a knockdown there. Quite eventful, I guess, for some of Zolani Tete's fights. But yeah, good win for him there. He moves into the next round of the World Boxing Super Series tournament. Also on this bill, we had in the Cruiserweight World Boxing Super Series tournament, Andrew Tabiti, 16-0. He came in there against Ruslan Fafer, who was 23-0. I don't think he'd really fought that many people. A little bit of a padded record. He certainly didn't have the names that Tabiti had. Fafer had a point deducted in the 12th round, but it didn't really matter, to be honest. It was a 12-round unanimous decision in favour of Andrew Tabiti, the Mayweather Promotions fighter. I think he's still with the money team. Also on the undercard, we had Vladimir Shishkin, 7-0. He got a TKO in round 10 against Najib Mohammadi. That's quite impressive there from Shishkin. A huge step up on paper this was for him. Not even just on paper, it was a huge step up, to be honest. Najib Mohammadi now 40-7. He was down in the 9th round, and like I say, he was down in the 10th round. Shishkin had a point deducted in round 9. It's funny because there were 3 big fights on this bill, and in all of the fights, opponents had or at least one fighter had a point deducted, which we don't see too often. So some hot-headed referees over there in Russia. Moving over now, though, to the York Hall card at Bethnal Green. I was sat there ringside for it. What a bill this was. It was shown on 5 Spike, the undercard, and also it was shown on Channel 5 for the main event. Let's get into this. I'm going to start with the undercard. I'm going to start with Chantel Cameron. She successfully moved to 8-0. She defended her IBO World Female Lightweight title against Jessica Gonzalez, 7-4 with 2 draws going in. A very tough Mexican lady who'd never been stopped, and she wasn't stopped here. Also, I should mention the vacant WBC Silver Female Lightweight title was on the line as well. A unanimous decision, 10 2-minute rounds in favour of Chantel Cameron. Like I say, Gonzalez was deducted a point in round 9. I think the referee was a little bit harsh on Gonzalez. I think that he was on her case quite a lot. I think that Chantel's quite a dirty fighter. I've been watching her a few times now, and like she does stuff like she got her opponent in a headlock, and then, you know, while she bent her opponent over kind of thing, she threw one to the ribs, you know, the unguarded, unprotected ribs of her opponent, like a left hook. work to the ribs. A few times she was hitting her in the back of the head. I mean, she's quite a dirty fighter. Not that she's not a brilliant fighter, because she is, and I'm a big fan of hers, but she can get quite nasty. And I was expecting the Mexican lady to probably have a few tricks up her sleeve, but I think Chantel was the one who knew the rough and ready tricks, and she was up for it. And an impressive win. She banks the rounds and she moves up those rankings in the lightweight division. I think they're putting her at about 3rd or 4th in the world now on most of the sanctioning bodies. I think even on BoxRec she's ranked really highly. Her and Katie Taylor, that fight needs to happen. It really does. Aside from that, it was a good win for her. Very bloody. She had blood all over her face that wasn't even hers. It was her opponent's. So you can imagine the scene if you hadn't watched the fight. Also, we had Chris Billum-Smith 6-0. He took on Robin Dupree 13-1. Dupree's one loss came to the Commonwealth champion Luke the Duke Watkins, where he lost that fight, obviously. Dupree actually quit on his stall after 5 rounds. It was a scheduled 10-rounder, but of course we didn't need that. It was a good fight while it lasted. I think both men showed vulnerabilities. I think that Chris Billum-Smith, his legs are like tree trunks. They really are. He looks so solid and planted when he's throwing his shots. Real good fighter. The first time I've sat down and watched him properly, and I must say I think he's got a bright future. I really do. I want to see him in some big fights at cruiserweight domestically. It was a little bit of a weird stoppage in the corner. It was a good fight while it lasted. I think it would have probably ended in a brutal knockout, but both men hit each other. Both men seemed to have each other in trouble at parts of the fight, but it was mainly Chris Billum-Smith who was looking the better in there. I think he probably won pretty much every round, and he was very annoyed when Dupree decided to pull himself out. And again, I'm not quite sure what actually happened, but the fight ended prematurely there. Also, we had Louis Adolphe. He outpointed William Warburton, so Adolphe now 9-1, a 6-rounder there. We also had Lee McGregor 4-0. He took on Thomas Asomba, who was 8-4. This one was for the vacant Commonwealth bantamweight title. Lee McGregor, a huge step up for him. And Thomas Asomba is a lot better than his record suggests. He'd of course never been stopped in his 4 losses. McGregor was obviously the much better punch picker. You could see that pretty much straight away. I felt that McGregor sometimes was loading up a little bit too much. He was very sharp early on, but he was gassing through the midway point of the fight. He actually got knocked down, but when I've looked on BoxRec, it's not been called a knockdown, so I'm not sure what happened on TV or whatever, but I know that the referee gave him a count and he wasn't happy about it. And again, I think on the replay on TV, I don't think it should have been a knockdown, so I'm not quite sure the final ruling of that from ringside, but it was a little bit of a questionable knockdown, like I say. It seemed like McGregor can punch though. He has got snap in his shots. I think Asomba's tough as nails, and he was very fit, Asomba. He'd never been stopped before, like I say, and McGregor had stopped everyone that he'd been in with, so someone's routine had to break. Would McGregor go the distance for the first time, or would Asomba get knocked out for the first time? And another thing about McGregor, he reminds me of Lee Selby, not just because his name's Lee, not just because his nickname's Lightning, but also his fighting style. He's kind of got similar moves to Lee Selby. I saw that. He is young though, and like I say, it was a steady step up for him, and an improved version of McGregor will be a real good fighter. He really will. He's certainly one to watch. He will improve rapidly, I believe, certainly under the tutelage of Shane McGuigan. He's very big for the bantamweight division, I believe, when I was looking at him as well, but a little bit heavy-legged. I think sometimes a little bit of a criticism is that he carries his weight on his front foot a little bit too much, and sometimes his backhand, like, he won't really get the power on it because all that weight's on the front foot, so it kind of makes it an arm punch at times. But yeah, a decent finish from him. Like I say, it came late. It was in the 12th and final round, but a statement made. He did land 1 or 2 shots on Asomba while he was on his knees, Asomba, so that was a bit naughty. But anyway, the towel got thrown in from Asomba's team. So yeah, a brilliant little win there for Lee McGregor, now 5-0 with 5 knockouts, and he's got the Commonwealth title. Unbelievable stuff for him. But now the main event, Martin Bakole 11-0. He took on the American Michael Hunter 14-1. That one loss came to Usyk at cruiserweight on points. No shame in that whatsoever. It was for the vacant IBO Intercontinental Heavyweight title. What an unbelievable fight. I mean, I'm going to go through this round by round here. So the first round, I felt that Michael didn't really seem to have the edge in power. I saw that straight away. I think Bakole had a real good stiff ramrod jab, and his reach was certainly giving him success. He had the clearly longer reach. Michael definitely checked Bakole's chin in that first round though, but he certainly outworked him, and Hunter, I felt, won that round despite being on the back foot. In round 2, I felt that Hunter was making Bakole miss a lot, but he wasn't really throwing too much in that second round. Everything he did throw was clever though, and he certainly landed the cleaner of the shots. But he also took some good shots himself in the second round, Michael. A close round. It was one of those rounds where I think you'd score it depending on what you like, but I actually was thinking that Michael looked tired even in that second round. But again, I've said it before, he's got that style. I don't even know if it's a style, but it's very deceptive. His mouth's open like he's really tired, but he's not as tired as he looks. It's a weird thing with him, it really is. But Bakole, I think, probably, in my opinion, won that round. So I had it 1-1 after 2 rounds. Like I say, it was one of those rounds where it depended on what you liked. It was a round for debate for sure. But anyway, forget about that. The third round, it was a very easy round to score. Michael was outboxing Bakole. Bakole didn't seem to be throwing much at all. He seemed to be looking quite pedestrian. Michael made Bakole miss a lot. I counted 1 good shot from Bakole in that whole round. Michael landed at least 10 eye-catching shots in that round, but Bakole looked solid as a rock. As soon as I saw that in the third round, I could just tell the shots he was taking, he was solid in there, he really was. So again, I'd probably score it 2-1 after 3 rounds there. In the fourth round, Hunter had been pushing Bakole back in that round. I think he also did the same in the third round. So 2 rounds in a row where Hunter started to put Bakole on the back foot. Bakole was trying to counter, but he was missing a lot. I wasn't too sure at that point what his game plan is. The pair was exchanging big shots, but once again, it wasn't even close. That was a clear round there for Michael Hunter. Going into the 5th round, Hunter looked totally exhausted at that point, which is crazy, but Bakole was unable to pin him down, and for me, he was outsmarted once again. Despite being on the front foot, Bakole started going back on the front foot there in the 5th round, but still, for me, a Hunter round, so 4-1 to Hunter. In the 6th round, it was a very close round. Hunter started very well. Bakole finished really well. I felt that Hunter nicked it on his earlier work in the round, but Bakole should have been up in the pace because Hunter's gas tank did look empty in that 6th round, but he didn't. He was letting Michael still kind of put him on the back foot and out hustle him. So 5-1 there, or even a case of 6 rounds to 0, like I say. In the 7th round, it was a completely one-sided round. No one really got hurt, to be honest, but Michael had Bakole pinned on the ropes for about 2 minutes 30 of that 3-minute round. Leaning on him, he was throwing little hooks here and there. Bakole was starting to look very tired too at that point, but he definitely still had some snap in his shots. Bakole's team acknowledged he was behind. They said that in the corner at the end of that round. In the 8th round, Michael was totally spent, in my opinion. I mean, he just needed to stay on his feet, and for me, he'd have won easily. I couldn't see a way at that point that he was going to get the knockout. I've written that here. Bakole, I think, probably won that 8th round, but it was a close round once again. At the end of that round, I think it was the end of round 8, where Bakole signalled to his team that something was up with his shoulder and he wanted to pull out, and Billy Nelson, of course, said, "You can't pull out, you've got no quitting you," and he put him back in there. In the 9th round, I felt that Michael won that round. It was a bit of a battle of the jabs, to be honest. Bakole was completely done. He was seeming like he was feeling sorry for himself. Michael needed to not risk anything though, because for me, I think he was mixing it up too much. I think he should have probably been dancing around rather than trying to exchange with him in that 9th round. And then, of course, in the 10th round, I felt that Bakole actually started the round pretty good. He was having success. He was landing big shots on Michael, who, like I say, had looked tired for about 7 rounds now. And I don't know where it come from, but Michael landed one shot out of nowhere, and then all of a sudden he got an injection of energy and he just went for the kill, and he completely piled it on to Bakole. And I don't know where this energy came from in Michael. And he just went for the kill. He pinned him on the ropes. He hit him with clean flush shots, left hooks, right hooks. I think he got him to the body once or twice as well. He just completely went for it. And I remember sitting there ringside screaming because I thought there was about 10 seconds left in the round, but the referee should have at least stopped it 10, 12 or so seconds before that. The corner should have thrown the towel in. They basically did not want Bakole to get knocked out. They wanted him to survive to the distance. So I thought there was about 10 seconds left in the round. So I thought they were going to probably get their wish, because Bakole didn't seem like he was going to go down. To his credit, he's a tough guy. And I said to Michael before the fight, because Michael told me that he believed he was going to stop him. And I said it, we don't know how good his chin is, Michael. So don't 100% start thinking that's going to happen. And Michael said to me, it doesn't matter how good his chin is. These are his words. He said, it doesn't matter how good his chin is. I'm going to be hitting him too often and too clean for it to matter how good his chin is. And, he said to me, he said, after about 2 rounds or 3 rounds, I thought back to what you said, and I said, do you know what? He was right. He was right about his tough chin. And like I say, he even said to me that in about the 7th or 8th round, he thought, that's it. I'm not going to be able to knock him out. But I tell you what, he went for it and he got the knockout. And like I say, watching it back on TV, there was 45 seconds left in the round when the referee jumped in. And when the referee did jump in, which was late in my opinion, like I say, the towel should have even come in, the referee actually took one in the face himself from Michael Hunter. So a brilliant thing for him to come over here and do that to Bakole, who again everyone was saying was so good. He's been sparring Joshua. He's been doing, I think, about 150 rounds with Anthony Joshua in the gym. But he's come over here and I want to say possibly exposed Bakole a little bit. Again, you can't go off sparring. This is what everyone was telling me in the build-up. I was a little bit hesitant myself. I was thinking, do you know what? I've heard so many good things about Bakole. It's such a hard fight to pick. But again, I went with Hunter to win on points, Ayaz. You went with Hunter to win by knockout, so you must have been pretty confident. And the listeners, hugely, they went with Bakole by knockout, massively. None of our listeners really gave Hunter a chance. He was on our show last week, and he pulled off the victory. So well picked from you there, Ayaz. You gained a point there. I was 45 seconds away from gaining a point. But one thing that we need to address here, and this is something real crazy. Everyone's criticising Billy Nelson, the manager and trainer of Bakole, because he didn't want to pull his fighter out. And in his defence, he's come out on Twitter and said that, and remember, the way I scored the fight, I've got it 8-1 or 7-2 at a push going into the 10th round. So that's 5 or 6 points up for Michael there. The judges, this is what Billy Nelson revealed. One judge had Michael 1 point up going into the final round, and 2 judges had it a draw going into the final round. I mean, I couldn't believe what I was hearing when Billy Nelson said that on Twitter. I couldn't believe what I was reading. And he said that, so that was his defence. He's saying, no, why would I pull him out of a fight that he was right in there? He was right in there. He could have won. If he won that last round, literally, if he would have won that last round, he'd have got the decision. And it would have been one of the biggest robberies I've ever seen. No one can believe what the judges had on their scorecards. But for Billy Nelson to come out and say that in a fight where no one had it close going into that final round, it kind of makes me think that Billy Nelson knew about the scores during the fight, because no one in their right mind had that close. And Billy Nelson must have known it wasn't close, but there was a reason why he wasn't stopping it, and he must have known the judging during the fight, which Hunter's team certainly didn't. And I actually informed Hunter's team the next day. I rang up Michael in his hotel room and I said to him, listen, do you know what the scorecards were? And I told him, and he was in so much disbelief that he had to put me on loudspeaker to tell the rest of his team about it, because he couldn't believe what I told him. And when I said that, I can't even repeat what they said in response when I told them that it was that close. I mean, they were literally getting ready to rob Michael Hunter of the decision. The judges were getting ready to rob Michael Hunter of the decision. But the thing is, if he would have survived that round, Bakole, in my opinion, it was a 10-8 round. It certainly wasn't a drawn round. It certainly wasn't a 10-10. It certainly wasn't a Bakole round. Michael Hunter all but knocked him unconscious, and like I say, the referee jumped in, but thankfully he did, because anyhow they'd have gave that a 10-10 round, it would have actually been a draw, which is shocking. So yeah, unbelievable. I'm so proud of Michael, being a friend of mine, of course. It was brilliant. It was brilliant to see him do what he did, and the next day I actually spent some time with him in his hotel. I think he had 2 tickets to see something that happened at Wembley. I think it might have been NFL or something like that, and he gave it to his team members, and they all went because he was resting up. Obviously it was a very tough fight. He was absolutely exhausted, and he didn't sleep a peep the whole night. So I went and saw him the following day in his hotel room, and we spent about 4 hours together, which was really good, just me and him. And I saw the belt there, and it was just brilliant to speak to him in depth like we did about the fight. fight and many other things. I took him for his first Nando's, which was excellent. So credit to Michael Hunter. Very, very proud of him. And big things for him down the line, whether it's at heavyweight or cruiserweight. A lot of people saying he certainly needs to go back down to cruiserweight. Obviously, he'll make that decision himself, but a fantastic thing for him, and he needs a big fight next. He really does. He's deserved it. He's come over here in the UK and he's earned it, and he's proved, and he's actually had to have a tough fight here on the road for not much money, and he's had to come over here and get the win, and he was completely up against it. The odds can tell you that. Any poll that people put out can tell you that. No one gave him a chance in hell apart from himself, and he's gone and pulled it off. And for a man to have an amateur career like he's had, to be in the Olympics and stuff like that, he now deserves a big shot. So hopefully Al Heyman can deliver for him. That's really it for that card there, though. Moving over now to the Metro Radio Arena in Newcastle, United Kingdom. I'm going to start here with Thomas Patrick Ward, 24-0. He got a knockout in the first round against a guy called Tom Tran, who was actually 6-1, now 6-2. A body shot finish there for Thomas Patrick Ward, a man that's, I think, biding time. I think he's got a big fight coming up soon. A good fighter, actually, and a young fighter as well. He's kind of done it on the small hall circuit, not with a big-time promoter. I want to see him do really well, Thomas Patrick Ward. There were many body shot knockouts on this card, by the way. Hosea Burton stopped his man in the first round with a body shot. A first round knockout against Seydou Sally, I think it was, or Seydou Sal. His record now 10-9 with 2 draws, but more importantly, Hosea Burton 22-1. Also, we had Anthony Fowler move to 8-0, a TKO in the 5th round against Gabor Gorbix, a man that we've seen plenty of times on these shores. So a good win there for Fowler. Not many people managed to knock Gorbix out. Simon Vallily got stopped in the 8th round, a TKO against Craig Glover, who's now 9-1. Simon Vallily now 13-2 with 1 draw. Vallily was actually down in the first round from a left hook, and he had a point deducted in the 5th round for use of his head. Now, like I say, back to the body shot finishes. Dave Allen, 14-4 with 2 draws, took on Samir Nebo, who was 10-2. All 10 victories come by knockout. All 2 losses came by knockout. He had 1 draw on his resume also, but this one, like I say, Nebo got in there. We all knew that the fight was going to end in a knockout. We knew that pretty much straight away. Well, as soon as the fight got announced. But Dave Allen, the first shot he landed to the body of Nebo hurt Nebo, and he had an awful poker face because he basically showed his face to Dave Allen through his guard. He showed him his face, and he looked so troubled by the shot to his body, and he just grimaced straight away. And as soon as he grimaced, then Dave Allen knew what to do, and he bided his time for a few seconds, but he pinned him in the corner, and he threw once again to the body. I think it was a left hook, and then he went up to the head with 1 or 2 shots. Then he came back down for a final left hook that he ripped to the body. And Nebo went down and he didn't beat the count. So that on my card here is 1, 2, 3 body shot finishes in the first round. And now we talk about another body shot finish in the first round. Josh Buatsi, 7-0, now 8-0. He defeated Tony Avalant, who's now 26-11 with 2 draws. Like I say, Avalant was knocked out by a body shot. This was a defense of the WBA International Light Heavyweight title from Buatsi. The first knockdown, because there was 2 knockdowns in total, the first one, there was a little bit of a slight delayed reaction. It was a body shot, like I say, and Avalant went down. He got back up, and he did survive for almost all of that round, because he was kind of on the back foot. He was being pinned against the ropes. He barely threw a shot himself, to be honest. Buatsi was just completely unloading on him, and then with about 20 or so seconds, he got dropped with a left hook to the body, and despite getting up once or twice during the count, he went back down every time, and he didn't want to continue. So that was an impressive win there from Buatsi, who, like I say, it's time to get out the measuring stick. Buatsi's done it in a round, and it took Yard, I think it was it 7 rounds? I think it took Yard to get rid of this guy, and he didn't knock him out. He actually made him quit on his stall. Avalanche was down twice in the 6th round, both, by the way, from left hooks to the body. So we know that Avalanche doesn't like it to the body. I think it obviously took Yard a lot longer to work that out than Buatsi, but he very much put the blueprint in front of Buatsi, who went to the body, and like I say, Avalanche didn't like it. So very impressive there when you get the measuring stick out, like I say, for these 2 light heavyweight undefeated Brits in Yard and Buatsi. But one thing is for sure, Avalanche, and this is a little bit of a defence on Yard's side here, Avalanche had plenty of time to prepare for Anthony Yard. I think he had at least a month or 2 to prepare for Yard, and I think in this case here he didn't even have a week. I don't think he had a week's notice. So I think it's about 5 or 4 maybe days notice for the fight. So when you look at that, then you kind of think, well, I understand what's gone on there. So let's not get too carried away with, Buatsi's so much better than Yard, because he had about a 10th of the time to prepare. So let's bear that in mind. But that's it for that one. That's another win there for Buatsi. Moving up the card once again, Ayaz, Lewis Ritson, a man that has had a fantastic 2018. He won the British title at the back end of last year. He's defended it 3 times successfully. I think he's the quickest man ever to win it outright, but he's got up there against Francesco Patera, 19-3. We'd seen him before against Sean Mashadod. He lost a split decision to Sean Mashadod. No one gave him a chance in hell to win this fight. It was for, like I say, the vacant EBU European lightweight title. Could Lewis Ritson finish his year on a high, win the British outright, and become European champion? Is it too good to be true? Talk to me, Ayaz.
Unfortunately, on the night Lewis Ritson lost that fight. Obviously, I was watching the fight from the start to the end. In the first round, I think Lewis Ritson was boxing really well. Obviously, he had the crowd with him. Alan Shearer was there ringside. He was boxing him up to round 5. Obviously, he started off very fast, and I think he was going for that knockout in the first 5 rounds. Unfortunately, it wasn't happening. And obviously, as the rounds went on, Patera was getting stronger and stronger, and Patera was winning the rounds. I had first round Ritson, Patera, Ritson, and then from there I had Patera winning the whole rounds. Round 10, I had Lewis Ritson winning, but you know what it was? With Ritson, he's trying to go for that early knockout. Unfortunately, it didn't happen, and therefore Patera won the fight. Obviously, Patera landed some very good shots on him in the face. Patera was hurting him as well, but Lewis Ritson still had it in and obviously lost some points.
Yeah, like I say, I didn't even get a chance to sit down and watch this fight, unfortunately. But after I knew the result, which I was informed of by another media member when I was at Hunter Bacoli. So yeah, I saw that and I didn't really fancy watching the whole 12 rounds, but very interesting because, like I say, Ayaz, we all knew that Ritson's been stopping people early, but Patera, as we said, had never been stopped in his 3 losses. So unbelievable. He's lost here at European level, which we all think he's better than European level. So I think maybe they just need to take a little bit of a step back, come off the hype train a little bit and just kind of relax with him. It's been very rushed. He's very young still. He can certainly come again. I think the rematch is something that probably should happen perhaps next year. And that's if Patera can actually hold on to the belt that long. But I think he would beat Patera. I think he's got the beating of Patera, but I think he's just a little bit naive at the moment. I think he's kind of believing in his own hype a little bit. But, you know, he's beaten these guys that weren't on the level of Patera, and that's the open and shut of it, really. I mean, Sean Mashadod fought out of his skin to beat Patera in a very, very close fight. But the interesting thing here is I actually picked Lewis Ritson to win on points, where you went with a knockout for Ritson, and so did the listeners. So I actually saw this fight going long, but it didn't end up going in Ritson's favour, which I was very shocked about. Like I say, I thought he'd get the rub of the green. But yeah, you didn't give him many rounds, so perhaps it was wider than... too wide to give him any rub of the green. But again, I went with Hunter to win on points, which was 45 seconds away from happening. But let's talk about another fight on the undercard once again here. A fight that I missed, Ayaz. So if you didn't see any of this, then we just have to announce the result here. Glenn Foote, 23-3, put his Commonwealth Super Lightweight title on the line against Robbie Davies Jr., who's now 17-1 because he picked up the win unanimously over 12 rounds. So he took the Commonwealth title away from Glenn Foote, and he's now the new British Super Lightweight champion. It was vacant before the fight, so 2 new belts there for Robbie Davies Jr. 17-1, a good win there over Glenn Foote, like I say. But I didn't see it, Ayaz. Did you see any of it at all?
No, unfortunately, I didn't.
All right, no problem. But like I say, Robbie Davies Jr., all the very best to him, a good friend of the show. Moving out now stateside to the final bill to review. This one happened at the CHI Health Center in Omaha, Nebraska, USA. We had Mike Alvarado pick up win number 40. He's also got 4 losses, a TKO in the second round against Robbie Cannon, who was 16-13 with 3 draws. People saying Mike Alvarado's back. He deserves a big shot once again. I hope they're being sarcastic. This guy was 16-13. Let's not get carried away, but he did finish him with a real big knockout. Carlos Adames picked up win number 15, a knockout in the second round for him against Joshua Conley, who was certainly overmatched. His record now 14-3 with 1 draw. He actually came in too heavy for the fight as well, so the belt wasn't on the line for him, but I don't think it mattered at all. Carlos Adames, the new NABF Super Welterweight champion. Also, we had Shakur Stevenson, Ayaz, who really impressed me here. He moved to 9-0, a TKO in the first round against Viral Simeon. Simeon was down 3 times in that first round. And we've got to remember, he went the distance in his only 2 losses. He went the distance with Scott Quigg in what was, I won't say it was a close fight, but it was certainly competitive. He gave Quigg a good fight. And then he went the distance and lost against Lee Selby. Again, not a fight that was super competitive or super close, but it was... Well, sorry, not super close, but it was quite competitive. I think one of the judges had it 116, 113, something like that. So a close fight in both of his losses against Selby and Quigg. But then again, like I say, Shakur Stevenson gets in there and stops him in the first round. 3 knockdowns. Statement made there for Shakur Stevenson, who's been knocked about not really having the power. I think he's adjusted from the amateurs to the pros like a dream, to be honest with you, and he's a friend of the show, so I wish him all the very best, and that's a brilliant win for him there. Very young still, Shakur Stevenson, so to think what he's going to be like in a few years is quite frightening. He really can be excellent if he sticks at it and, you know, continues to dedicate himself to the sport. But one thing I will throw out there in defense of Viral Simeon, he hadn't been in the ring for, I think it was about 17 months, and he was pulled in at short notice, but he was in the gym training actually, and he was in good shape, to be honest with you. So not too much to take away there from the win, but a brilliant statement nonetheless. On paper, that's excellent there from Shakur Stevenson to stop him. And now the main event here, Terence Crawford, 33-0, put his WBO welterweight title on the line against Jose Benavidez Jr., who was 27-0. Both men undefeated. Both men had a combined record of 60-0. Somebody's O had to go, like I say, and it was the O of Benavidez. He was down once in the 12th round. The fight itself, I felt that the first round was quite a close round. There was more shots thrown by Crawford, but the more meaningful shots that landed were by Benavidez. I think Crawford missed a little bit when he was coming in with his attacks. It was an argument for a 10-10, but if I was pushed, I'd probably say Benavidez shaded that round. In the second round, it was another really close round. Benavidez was dropping his hands. He was starting to draw Crawford in. Crawford was beginning to miss quite a lot, actually, which we don't see from Crawford. Both men had moments. Again, I felt it was a 10-10 round, so 2 close rounds there. Going into the third round, definitely Crawford won that round. Crawford seemed to have adjusted to the style of Benavidez. He was landing to the body a lot, and the speed was so clearly with Crawford. In the fourth round, I hate to say it, but another close round. I'd probably edge it to Benavidez. I think he got the better of the power punches when they were trading off, and the amount of jabs that were landed by both men was pretty similar in numbers. So, again, just shaded there for me to Benavidez. The fifth round was another close round. Once again, I'd probably just shade it to Benavidez. I think he landed a beautiful combination in that round. A little bit like the combination or the combinations that his brother David Benavidez likes to throw, or David Benavidez, I should say. I think when he finished off Porky Medina, he threw a lovely combination to the head. It was similar of that, but of course it wasn't as dangerous. In the sixth round, a very, very good round. Both men were exchanging. Benavidez seemed to have had the edge in power, I think, but Crawford Crawford won that round for me, but a lot of people disagreed with me and gave that round to Benavidez. But in the 7th round, and this is where Crawford started to run away with it in the second half of the fight for me, it was a clear round for Crawford in the 7th. Crawford, ridiculously fit. We know his conditioning is second to none. Benavidez was starting to tire a little bit in that 7th. In the 8th round, Crawford was beginning to dominate. He was too skillful for Benavidez. He was too fit, like I say, for Benavidez. In the 9th round, the punch output from Benavidez had rapidly declined. Crawford was cruising that round. He was starting to get very comfortable in there. It was starting to look quite easy from him. In the 10th round, it was a good round for both men. I think there was exciting moments where the pair would trade shots in the middle of the ring, but Crawford was able to trap Benavidez on the ropes for the majority of that round. Benavidez didn't seem too upset about being on the ropes, to be honest. He was happy to be there, but it was the wrong tactics from him. Another round there for Crawford. In the 11th round, a very good round for Crawford once again. He seemed to, like I say, dominate the second half of the fight unquestionably. He probably hurt Benavidez for the first time in the fight in that 11th round. And like I say, Benavidez was continuing to run out of steam. No sharpness was left in him. Crawford was able to hit him at will pretty much, and Crawford was looking excellent in that 11th round. And then, like I say, in the 12th and final round, a very good round for Crawford. It was a decent round. It was fairly competitive, and then Crawford landed a lovely uppercut which dropped Benavidez heavily. To his credit, he did get back up to his feet, and Crawford tried swarming him immediately, but from my angle it looked like he missed most of his shots, but he did get through with 2 or 3 heavy looking shots, and the stoppage came. He was a little bit premature in my opinion. I know he'd been down a few seconds before that, but there was only I think 15 seconds or something left in the round, so yeah, he was quite unlucky to not survive the distance, Benavidez, but you can't take anything away from Crawford. He did his job, and like I say, he was in there against a man who was so much taller than him. He was giving away so many inches in terms of height and stuff like that. I think Benavidez stands at 6'2", and remember, Crawford's he was big for lightweight. He was big for 140, but since moving up to 147, taking on Jeff Horn, he gave away size there, and he gave away even more size here against Benavidez. So credit to him, he's fighting the taller guys, and he's still able to beat them. Yeah, one thing that I say here, like about the prediction league, just before we wrap up part 1, Ayaz, you've come from behind, because last week you were, like I say, at the back, and you're now in the lead with the predictions. It's crazy because I came so close. I mean, I backed Hunter to win on points. No one believed that would happen. It was 45 seconds away from happening. I backed Ritson to win on points. No one saw that going to points, but obviously he lost a split decision. I backed Robbie Davies Jr. to win on points, which happened. And then I backed Crawford to win on points, which was 15 seconds or less away from happening. So basically, I predicted that all 4 fights would go the distance, and they either did, or they went into the last 45 seconds of the round, or the last 15 seconds of the round. So somehow I only gained 1 point, and Ayaz, you were able to leapfrog me there. So that is, let's have a look. You got 3 right, Ayaz: a Hunter knockout, Davies Jr. on points, and Crawford by knockout. The listeners only got 1 right, which was Crawford to win by knockout, and I only got 1 right, which was Robbie Davies Jr. to win on points. So you're in the lead, Ayaz. You've come from behind. Me and the listeners still tied up. But we will talk about the totals of the scores at the end of the show. But that's really it for the review part of the show. Just before we wrap up part 1, the last thing to do is to welcome our very first guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the former British champion, but not just any British champion. Oh no, this man has got the belt for keeps. It's at his house. It's, of course, Mr. Bradley Skeete. Bradley, welcome back on the show.
How you doing, Joe? You good, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. But firstly, Brad, I really do appreciate you making some time for us on what is your birthday. This, of course, is your 31st. So happy birthday, Brad.
Thank you, mate. Nice one. But no birthday celebrations today. I'm in the gym. You might hear the bags rattling. So I'm in the gym, working hard, and, yeah, getting ready for Saturday. So, yeah, we'll celebrate Saturday.
Excellent, man. The 17th of October. Just to throw it in there, my great-granddad would have been 100 years old today, God rest his soul. But, Brad,
wicked.
We caught up in...
a good man.
There you go. Yeah, he was a good man. But we caught up in the build-up to the Lejarraga fight last time out. It was back in February, actually, about a month out from the fight. All I can ask, Brad, really is, I know it's a difficult question to answer, but what went wrong that night? It wasn't the Bradley Skeete that we know.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly it. It just wasn't me on the night. I'm making no excuses. It just wasn't me. I think everyone who knows me and see the performance, it just wasn't me. I don't know what it was. Yeah, it was hostile crowd. It was first time fighting away from home, but it's one of them. And it's boxing. You got to part with them things sometimes, and it just wasn't the performance. It wasn't me in there. But like I said, I don't make excuses. The better man won on the night. It was over before it started, really. But I brushed myself down and we'll go again.
Yeah, it was a real weird situation because the way I kind of saw things, I mean, you were pushing to be the WBO mandatory, and a world title shot would have been coming for you really if you'd have waited a little bit. But it seemed like you kind of took that fight a little bit as a kind of keep busy fight, but obviously no one knew how good this guy was, and then obviously losing to him in a way, I guess, has kind of ripped a big payday from underneath your feet. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. I was going over there. I was as the favourite, not like speaking to you beforehand as well. We both said he's looking for his record. He's got a really good record, but no one stood out on his record. He boxed out Bilbao once, and the only name what stood out really was Denton Fussell, and that was really at the end of Denton Fussell's career. So I wasn't really like looking into it too much. We knew he had power, but we didn't know how much power and who he'd been stopping. But obviously, to get a good win over me like that is in all the world rankings now. He's high, so good luck to him, and he's a great fighter, and I'm sure he'll go on to do big things.
And without me going off topic too much, I'm pretty sure that at the Joshua Povetkin fight, I'm so sure it was him. It had to be him. I saw him in the queue. I was queuing up to get a hot dog between fights, and he was in the queue. I'm sure it was him because he had a like a Bilbao Football Club T-shirt on. It must have been him.
But yeah, it probably was.
It probably was, yeah.
And what fight was that?
That was at the Joshua Povetkin fight.
And yeah, he was there because he messaged me. We've kept in contact since the fight, and he messaged me and said he was going to the fight, so it would have been him.
It would have been him. So you guys are pretty cool now then?
Yeah, listen, it's what it is. It's a fight at the end of the day. We're gentlemen, and he's a family man like me. He's got a little girl. I met his family, I met his wife, I met his little girl over there. And it's business. Listen, it's business. We ain't in there to hate each other. We shook hands, we both shook hands after, and we've stayed in contact. So yeah, it is what it is.
Okay, good job I never went over and gave him a body shot because I felt like doing it. but on to other things, Brad. You're back this weekend against a guy who's probably got the most Spanish sounding name in boxing. Is this your revenge to try and beat up someone with a Spanish name?
Well, yeah, I think he's Mexican, but I think he's living out in Spain, but he's got a Spanish name. So, yeah, a bit of revenge, bit of sweet, really.
His name is Fernando Valencia. The guy's record is 8-6, but of those 6 losses, he's never been stopped, Brad. Is this fight about getting the confidence back? Is this fight about trying to knock a guy out that's never been stopped before, or is it just simply a fight?
Yeah, listen, it's simply just a fact, getting back into the swing of things, getting back to winning, getting back to doing what I do best. I've not had that much momentum. I've boxed, obviously, April for the European. That was less than 2 rounds. And then before that was in July. So it's all about getting some rounds. I'd like to get some rounds. Listen, the stoppage would be great to stop a guy who's never been stopped. But listen, if I get the rounds, I get the rounds. That just sets me up for December. Should be out again in December, so yeah, I look to build momentum, and all starting on Saturday, getting back to winning ways.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Will you be fighting again before the calendar year's out? You've kind of answered that there. You're looking at something in December, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. December the 8th. I tell you the date. It's December the 8th.
Okay.
But first things first, we get a clinical win on Saturday.
Yeah, for sure. Now, Frankie Gavin has come out and said that he was offered to fight you, despite you knowing that he's fighting Kerman Lejarraga next month. Is there any truth in that, Brad?
Yeah. I believe so, but I'd seen the tweet, but obviously for people the way he's put it is like, I've offered him the fight. I didn't personally offer him a fight. Obviously, he's gone on like in the office or whatever. They've offered him the fight, but I don't know. I don't. He needs to concentrate on Kerman because he won't be boxing me in December. No way. If he's boxing Kerman in November, he won't be boxing me. He won't be boxing me. No way in December. So I don't know why they would have offered it to him for December, but it's a fight. I've got a loss on my record to him, and it's a loss I'd want to put right. If it can happen, it happens. But I can't see him fighting after the Kerman fight. So I just concentrate on my career and let him worry about his. He's got big fight ahead of him, so he needs to stop worrying about me and worry about the fight with Kerman.
Yeah, I think he kind of came out and said that, I think he said himself that he wouldn't be ready for later this year, maybe something next year, like the early part, which, by the way, just from my point of view, if I may say so, I'd love to see that rematch because you mentioned there, he's got a win over you on paper, but it very much was on paper. I was there I was there at that fight, and I thought that you actually won that fight, in my opinion. But
a lot of people do. So it's boxing, it happens. It's one of them. And listen, since the fight, just look at our careers. He's gone on and got beat by and dropped and stopped by Sam Eggert, the guy who I went on and beat. So it's boxing. That's how it goes, don't it? So it's just one of them.
Yeah, for sure. Who wins that fight, by the way, between Frankie Gavin and Lejarraga? I'm guessing you probably favour the Spaniard.
You didn't ask that. I think you know who wins that fight.
Hey, I don't know, man. I don't know. Frank. Depends what Frankie turns up, Brad, man.
Yeah, no. Listen, he ain't gonna win that fight. He ain't gonna win that fight. No way.
Okay. Now, I'm sure I also read something, Brad, about you. I don't know how it kind of started, but you said something about you've got your eye on perhaps Gary Corcoran. Is that true?
No, if I'd my own Gary Corcoran, I'd have kept my British title and defended it against him. I'm looking to move on from the domestic scene now, and it's my stablemate now, Johnny Garton. He's next in line. I've won the domestic belt outright, the British title outright. So me and domestic level should have been done with it a long time ago. And I'll move on. But listen, if Gary was to beat John. Then it's a fight down the line that I'm sure can get made because we're both in the same stable with Frank under Frank Warren. It's a fight that's been spoke about, and I think it's a good fight, but it deserves more than domestic title. It deserves a bigger title for us and a bigger payday, to be honest.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree, to be honest. Talking about the world scene just quickly, Brad, obviously everyone's kind of, they got their own opinion who's number one, who's number two, but my top three would have to be at 147. It's got to be Spence, Crawford and Furman. Would you disagree with that? Yeah. Which order would you put those three in?
Yeah, the same. I think definitely Spence is the top one at the minute. No disrespect, Crawford, he's just come up at the weight. He's had a good few wins at the weight now, but I think Spence is the one at the top. Then obviously Crawford, then Furman. It's mad to think in such a great division that Pacquiao's the weak link. It's mad.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And finally, Brad, just before we let you go, my friend, like I say, I really appreciate you taking some time out from your birthday. Is there anything at all that you want to say just to our listeners before we let you go?
Yeah, just as always, thank you for everyone who supports me and shows me the love. I'm really looking forward to getting back on Saturday and doing the business. And again, to my sponsors, my full-time sponsor, the King Group, a new sponsor who's come on board, Club Whites, Athlete's Kitchen, David Lloyd for my membership, Box Fit for my kit, and Ringside. Thank you.
Well said, well said. Right, listen, Brad, it's always a pleasure speaking with you, my man. You know that. I wish you the absolute best for Saturday, and we'll definitely catch up sometime after.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay, now it's time for part two on this week's show. This part, of course, the news part of the show. Ayaz, take it away. What you got for us?
Yes, the first news that Liam Williams will face JJ Metcalf on the undercard of Carl Frampton vs Josh Warrington.
Yeah, of course, December 22nd. We had Liam on the show a few weeks ago. You know, we were talking about his upcoming fight, which he went on to win, and we were talking about his link-up with Dominic Ingle, and he did let it slip that he would perhaps be taking on JJ Metcalf later on in the year, and then it kind of faded away. The news kind of faded away, and we weren't sure what was going to happen, but we heard there was a fight being announced, and it was, in fact, JJ Metcalf, so I know he's well up for that fight, and that should be a good one, so all the very best to Liam Williams, friend of the show.
Okay, Matchroom have announced another boxing card in Monte Carlo on the 24th of November.
Yeah, I'm just going to quickly run through the card here. We've got Cal Yafai putting his WBA World Flyweight title on the line against Israel Gonzalez. We've got Zalil Zhang, the guy that I've been talking about for a long, long time, the Chinese silver medalist in the Olympics. He turned pro. He's a big 6'6", I believe, southpaw, and he just hasn't really had the right fights. I think he's about 35 or 36 years of age. He needs to get moving. He takes on Alexander Ustinov, so that should be interesting. Also, we've got Denis Lebedev taking on Mike Wilson. That one's for the WBA World Cruiserweight title. Also on the card, we've got Fan Long Meng, who was an Olympian, a Chinese Olympian. He takes on our very own Frank Buglioni, friend of the show. That one's for the IBF Intercontinental Light Heavyweight title, which belongs to Fan Long Meng, who's undefeated, I believe, in 13. So, a few decent and strange fights there. Obviously, it's going to be on Sky Sports. It's going to be on DAZN for the US viewers. But yeah, quite a few weird ones there. Very international. Like I say, Cal Yafai takes on a Mexican. Top of the bill kind of thing is Lebedev, a Russian, taking on Mike Wilson, an American. We've got a Chinese heavyweight, Zalil Zhang, taking on a Russian heavyweight, Ustinov. And then we've got Buglioni taking on a Chinese light heavyweight in Fan Long Meng. So it's quite a flurry of odd matchmaking, but that's my kind of card, actually. So I'm very much looking forward to that one. All the very best to Frank Buglioni. And yeah, the rest of the guys on the bill, Cal Yafai, looking forward to it.
Yep, that's it for the news.
Thank you very much, Ayaz. Right, moving over now to the preview part of the show. There's a fight happening later on this evening. It's happening over in the Fantasy Springs Casino in California, USA. It's going to be shown on ESPN2, a Golden Boy promotion show. Friend of the show, Jason Quigley, 14-0. He puts his NABF middleweight title on the line against Freddie Hernandez, 34-9. Obviously, Jason Quigley, a man that has recently, like we just mentioned there about Liam Williams, he's recently just linked up with the Ingle gym as well, so exciting to see Jason Quigley, although it's another step up for him, and I'm getting a little bit impatient with him, to be honest. I want to really see him stepped up. I think he's doing it the American way rather than the British way a little bit, so I want to see him against some of the bigger names, but he takes on a guy here who is a tough fighter, I guess. He's 39 years of age now, Freddie Hernandez, but he's been around the block. He's a Mexican, obviously, but yeah, I'd expect no real problems from Quigley. Let's talk about some of Hernandez's top fights. So, I mean, he beat Alfredo Angulo back in 2016. He actually lost. The bad thing is he lost 6 fights in a row from 2012 to 2014, and along the way he lost on points to Erislandy Lara, no shame in that. He lost on points to Demetrius Andrade, no shame in that. He lost by knockout to Julian Williams. He also got knocked out in the 6th round by Brad Solomon. But he got knocked out in a round by Andre Berto back in 2010, an undefeated Berto at the time. He did, however, beat Louis Collazo back in 2011. That's probably his standout win, you'd have to say. But not a bad fighter. A decent fight there for Jason Quigley, who I don't believe will struggle with him too much. But good little card there, I suppose, for a Thursday night. Moving over now, though, to the Brentwood Centre in Essex, a fight card that I'm hoping to be there for. This one's going to be shown on BT Sport. We have a real good bill here, actually. It's too good for the Brentwood Centre, if I may say so. I hope I'm not offending any Brentwood residents that may listen to this podcast. But we've got Umar Sadiq 3-0 taking on Zach Chelly 4-0. This is a fantastic fight. Once again, Frank Warren matching his men together and seeing who's the best. It's a risky fight because both men are not really fighting, I'd imagine, for too much money, and there's no belt on the line, so it's very early on. But I suppose early on to take a loss isn't the end of the world. Someone will lose. Yeah, a good fight, this one. I think it's a good clash of styles. I mean, Umar Sadiq is a tall, rangy boxer. He's an out-and-out boxer, whereas Zach Chelli can box, but I think he's also a good fighter. I think if it come down to having a war, then you don't really want a war with Zach Chelli. I remember seeing Zach Chelli take on Adam Jones, who's one of my favourite all-time journeyman. He's never been stopped even to this day. He's as tough as old boots, and Zach Chelli actually wobbled Jones, and you never see Jones get wobbled, so I know that Zach Chelli can certainly punch. But yeah, Zach Chelli's been 6 rounds. Umar Sadiq, like I say, 3-0. He's been 4 rounds, so there's not too much really to gauge off of that. I think you'd have to say the power is with Chelli, but Sadiq is very rangy, very tall, and a good boxing brain. Very clever man outside of boxing as it is. So an interesting clash of styles there. And I think, as we're going to go to the predictions on this, I'm going to go. I know you're probably not going to know too much about these guys because they've been thrown on Frank Warren undercards and haven't necessarily been televised. But I've seen these guys a few times each. I remember being there for Zach Chelli's debut at York Hall. And I'm going to go with Umar Sadiq to win on points. But like I say, I wouldn't be shocked either way. While you gather your prediction, Ayaz, the listeners have gone with... In fact, tell me your prediction. I'll check what they've gone with.
I'm going to go with Umar Sadiq on points.
You're going to go with the same as me. Okay. And the listeners have gone with Chelli by knockout, 56%. And then after that, Sadiq on points, 22%. So interesting there from the listeners. They believe in Chelli's power. Certainly not saying that you shouldn't. He can really bang. Moving up the card once again, we've got Boy Jones Jr. 17-1 with 1 draw. He's in a 6-rounder against Lester Cantillano, who I think we've seen in there against Archie Sharp, 4-21. Cantillano, that is a 6-rounder. Also, we've got Nathan Gorman, 13-0. His opponent yet to be announced. That is an 8-rounder there. Lucian Reed, 7-0, takes on Rafael Castillo, who's 14-47 with 3 draws. Return to the ring of Bradley Skeete, the man that's recently given up the British title. It's interesting because the main event here is for his belt. It's vacant, obviously. He gave up the title. His record 27-2. It's his 30th fight. He takes on Fernando Valencia, who's 8-6. That's an 8-rounder there. I think he's trying to get revenge on someone who's Spanish after losing to Lejarraga. He won't mind me saying that, Bradley Skeete. Moving up the bill once again, Anthony Yarde, 16-0. He's in a 10-rounder against Walter Sequeira, who's 21-4. A lot of people very frustrated with this matchmaking because not many people know who this guy is, including myself. I'm not going to lie, I didn't know who he was. He's 21-4, like I say, 15 wins by knockout, so it would indicate that he can punch a little bit. He's an Argentinian fighter. But yeah, his 4 losses, 1 was by knockout, and that was to a guy called Ezekiel Moderna, who just lost a couple of weeks ago to Jose Uzcategui over 10 rounds. But yeah, he was stopped by Moderna. He actually went 12 rounds with Avni Yildirim. We know him for losing to Eubank Jr. in the World Boxing Super Series. And aside from that, his other 2 losses, 1 was a split decision and 1 was a majority decision over 4 rounds on his debut. So again, it's another one for Yarde where he takes on a guy who's relatively unknown, but he's probably quite a tough guy. So if he doesn't look good against him, people are going to get on his back, especially after Josh Buatsi beating Avalanche on the weekend in a round. So I wouldn't imagine it's going to be a fantastic reception for Yarde if he doesn't get him out of there pretty early. Moving up the card once again, we're going to go to the predictions on this. Gary Corcoran, 18-2. Those losses to Liam Williams and Jeff Horn, no real shame. He takes on Johnny the Pexican Garton, a man that really does like to fight. 22-1 with 1 draw. Garton, former English champion. This one, of course, for the vacant British Welterweight title, like I say, that was vacated by Bradley Skeete to give these guys something to fight for. Fantastic fight, and this one has war written all over it. Gary Corcoran likes a war, and Johnny Garton, he doesn't know how to not be in a war, so I'd imagine this is going to be fireworks for the viewers, and like I say, I'm hoping to be there to watch it. How do you see it unfolding, Ayaz, Corcoran and Garton?
I think it's going to be a very good fight. Obviously, I don't know much about Garton, I know much about Gary Corcoran. If I'm going to go to the win, I'm probably going to go Gary Corcoran on points.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree with you, Ayaz, to be honest. I think that obviously he's boxed at the higher level. I know he took on Jeff Horn, but he had to get on the road for that, and he actually gave him a tough fight. It was a very bloody fight. But yeah, well, he's had one fight since then, which I think is a good thing. I'm glad he's not jumping straight in without having a fight in the meantime. He knocked out a guy called Victor Ankara in 5 rounds back in June. But yeah, I'm expecting a win here for Gary Corcoran on points, just like you said, Ayaz. And the listeners are actually going with Corcoran by knockout, so that really would be something. Like I say, Gary Corcoran, a friend of the show, I wish him all the very best. Moving up the bill once again. No, sorry, that's it for that bill actually. So leaving that one there, moving out now stateside to the CFE Arena in Orlando, Florida, USA. This one's a World Boxing Super Series card. We have Keith Tapia, 18-1, takes on Mike Perez, 23-3 with 1 draw, a 10-round contest there. That'd be quite interesting actually. Mike Perez seems to lose and then he just disappears and then he pops up in a big fight. That's what he likes to do. The way he lost to Povetkin and then disappeared and came back at cruiserweight was just unbelievable. But yeah, getting down to the real gritty fights here. Junior Dorticos, 22-1, takes on Matthias Masternak, 41-4. That's a brilliant fight, by the way. I'd expect Dorticos to win that by knockout, but I'm very much intrigued for that one. Still don't know if it's going to get shown on TV or not. I think it's probably on the YouTube channel, which is quite annoying. But the main event here, Emmanuel Rodriguez, 18-0. He puts his IBF World Bantamweight title on the line. Obviously, Rodriguez looked absolutely excellent when he beat Paul Butler. And he takes on Jason Maloney, who's a real good fighter. Obviously, Andrew and Jason, the 2 brothers, the 2 twins. Maloney's a good fighter, like I say, 17-0. Both men undefeated. Somebody's O's got to go. But I really rate Rodriguez, a Puerto Rican fighter and a master boxer. I haven't seen too much of Maloney, if I'm being honest. I've heard good things though. I think he was quite a good amateur as well, but I just really rate Rodriguez. I think he's big for the weight, and like I say, his movement's unbelievable. His feet are great, and he's a very smart boxer, very high ring IQ. So I'd imagine that Rodriguez would win that fight. But moving over now to another part of America, we're going to the TD Garden in Boston, Massachusetts, USA. Ayaz, I'm going to start with you here. Demetrius Andrade, 25-0, fights for the vacant WBO World Middleweight title. It was supposed to be Billy Joe Saunders in the other corner, but the less said the better on that one. He takes on instead Walter Kauton-Dokwa, 17-0 with 16 knockouts. Obviously, I'm not expecting you to tell me a whole load on Kauton-Dokwa because I don't know a whole load, but all I do know is it's very, very difficult for Andrade Ayaz to prepare for his whole camp for a southpaw master boxer, not the massivest puncher in Billy Joe Saunders. And all of a sudden, forget about southpaw, he's fighting an orthodox. Forget about a master boxer, he's taking on a complete out-and-out banger in Kauton-Dokwa. Very, very hard to adjust to with just a few days out. But all the very best to Andrade, of course, but very hard, like I say, to switch it up like that.
Yes, I think it's going to be a very good fight. I think if I'm going to go with a win, I'm going to go Andrade to win via knockout.
Yeah, do you know what? I'll probably side with you once again, Ayaz. We seem to not be split so far. But yeah, this Kauton-Dokwa, I mean, you look at his record, he hasn't really got the names on there at all. I mean, his best win would probably be against maybe Billy Godoy. That was in his last fight, but then again, Godoy is not fantastic. Yeah, I mean, he's a banger, and that's what it is. He's a Namibian fighter. But yeah, I wouldn't really expect too much from him. Obviously, Demetrius Andrade was a brilliant amateur, stellar amateur, and he's a absolutely perfect pro at the moment, undefeated, and I'm expecting him to remain undefeated. Let's look at what the listeners have gone with. I'm expecting probably Demetrius Andrade by knockout. Yes, Demetrius Andrade by knockout, 55%, and Andrade on points, 36%. No one giving a chance there to Kauton-Dokwa. That's it for that one. Moving up the card once again, we've got Kid Galahad, 24-0 in a 12-rounder against Toka Khan Clary, who's 25-1. I believe this is some kind of eliminator for a title. It's about time really for Kid Galahad, but a good test in front of him also. Again, he doesn't really seem to end up in the big fights, but this is a risky fight against a guy that can bang 17 knockouts from his 25 wins. His one loss came by knockout though in 2016 to John Gamino, who's not that known, a Philippine fighter, so that one's a real blemish and it doesn't look too good. But he also has had a few decent fights where he's beaten people and took their O's, so quite a good fight, that one, for Kid Galahad. I'm hoping that he wins it, though, because we like Kid Galahad here, a friend of the show, a 12-round contest there. Katie Taylor defends her IBF and WBA World Female Lightweight titles against Cindy Serrano, who's 27-5 with 3 draws. She's part of the Serrano sisters. They're both phenomenal athletes, the two sisters, Cindy and Amanda. She's never been stopped, though, Serrano, but you'd have to say she's probably up against it here against Katie Taylor, so that one should be interesting, though, for Katie, because this will probably be her toughest girl that she's been in with, arguably anyway. Also, we've got Tevin Farmer, 26-4 with 1 draw. His first defence of his IBF World Super Featherweight title against James Tennyson, Ayaz, who absolutely obliterated Martin J. Ward a few months back. He looked really good, and he's obviously a big guy for that weight there. 22-2, like I say, Tennyson against Tevin Farmer, 26-4 with 1 draw. Can it be Tennyson's night, Ayaz? Talk to me.
No, I don't think so. I think Tevin Farmer's the most experienced guy, and I think with the experience that he's got, I think he's going to win this fight on points.
Yeah, once again, I've got to go with you, Ayaz, and so have the listeners. I think we're all going Tevin Farmer on points. Like I say, I think there will be a few moments, because I think Tevin Farmer, as good as he is defensively, I think he can be hit, and I think Tennyson can really punch. I think his power's underrated, actually, Tennyson. He looks so good against Martin J. Ward. He really can punch, and like I say, real big for the weight, and he knows how to use his size. He's not as bad as what. Again, he's been knocked a few times, and obviously his 2 losses have come by knockout. You know, he got stopped by Ryan Walsh in 5 rounds. He got stopped against a guy who, I've got to be honest, was a journeyman back in 2013. But since then, he's looked really, really good. Obviously, beating Ryan Doyle, who's now in a big fight in a couple of weeks' time. He beat Declan Geraghty. Like I say, the way he beat Martin J. Ward was unbelievable, and that's what set this fight up. But yeah, I can't take nothing away from him. He is a good fighter, but I just think Tevin Farmer, too silky and slick. The size may be a problem. I think he'll probably have a few moments, Tennyson. I think he'll probably start well, but Tevin Farmer, I just can't see losing it. Certainly can't see him being outboxed. So I think he'll probably slide to a points win. He's not the biggest puncher himself, but he is very sharp, so could be quite interesting. I'm hoping it will be. But yeah, we're all going Tevin Farmer on points there. Moving down the card once again, Tommy Coyle, 24-4 in a 10-rounder against Ryan Kilsweski, who I don't know too much about. I know he's 29-3. I think this was a opponent change. I think Tommy Coyle was supposed to take on someone else, but he's got this guy here. Yeah, it's a step up in terms of looking at their resumes on paper. He's never been stopped, so I'm expecting this one to go the distance. He's not the biggest banger himself. And Tommy Coyle, again, he's not the biggest banger when you really think about it, so probably a points fight, that one, but obviously we're rocking with Tommy Coyle. Bring it back to Hull, my friend. Also on the bill, we've got Scott Quigg, 34-2 with 2 draws. He's in an 8-rounder against Mario Briones, who's 29-7 with 2 draws. I'm not quite sure the point of this fight, to be honest. This guy got knocked out in 3 rounds by a guy in his last fight who was 8-1 with 2 draws. Anytime he's ever stepped up or even thought about stepping up, he's been knocked out. So I'm expecting Quigg to stop this guy pretty simply. Also, we're seeing the Olympic gold medalist Daniyar Yulusanov. His record 3-0. He's in a 6-rounder. His opponent yet to be announced, though. Again, people not too high on him just yet. You have to be patient. 1 knockout from his 3 wins. Yeah, that's it for that one there. Moving over now to the final bill to mention. This one's happening at the Park Theatre in Las Vegas, Nevada, USA. This one's going to be shown, by the way, on ESPN Plus. I believe that's the mobile app, and it's also going to get shown on Box Nation, so set this one up to tape if you're interested, that is. We've got Maxim Dadashev, 11-0. He's in a real step up against Antonio DeMarco, 33-6 with 1 draw. That's a 10-rounder there, but the main event here, the real fight on the card, Ryota Murata, 14-1. His 1 loss was a very questionable loss to Hassan and Dan, which obviously the pair had a rematch and Murata beat him pretty clearly, and then he picked up the WBA World Middleweight title. So yeah, he holds that belt. He puts it on the line here against Rob Brandt, who was the sole American going into the Super Middleweight World Boxing Super Series tournament last time out, and Rob Brandt came up against Jürgen Bremer. Then of course Bremer beat him, and the winner of that fight was supposed to take on Callum Smith, which then obviously Bramer pulled out and in-stepped that kickboxer guy whose name was Nicky Holscon. So, going off on a bit of a tangent there, but yeah, Rob Brandt 23-1. The one loss was to Bramer, and aside from that, he hasn't really got the best wins. I think he actually either came up in weight or went down in weight to enter that tournament. I think he went up in weight because he's now down at middleweight, so that would say that he went up in weight for the tournament, which was obviously a silly thing to do, and Bramer came down in weight, if you remember. So interesting factors, but yeah, he's in there against Murata. I don't really give him a chance. I'd imagine that Murata would win that fight because Murata, a good amateur obviously, and a good professional with one questionable loss that he avenged, so pretty much a perfect record from him. But that's really it for the preview, and like I say, we've brought you guest number 1. We're about to bring you guest number 2. We brought you the review in, the news and the preview in, but yeah, like I say, just before we wrap up part 2, the last thing to do is to welcome guest number 2. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the former WBO World Title Challenger. It's, of course, Mr. Gary Corcoran. Gary, welcome back on the show.
Cheers for having me, Matt. It's good to be on the show.
Hey, it's always my pleasure having you on. So, Gary, we last spoke not too long ago, actually. It was back in June. At that time, you were getting ready to take on Paddy Gallagher, a fight that obviously never ended up happening. What actually happened for the fight to fall out of bed, by the way, Gary?
I really don't. He got an injury in his jaw or something, but fight never happened. So I'm just looking ahead now. Not really bothered what he's doing. I'm just looking ahead. Look for better and bigger teams. And that's all.
Of course. You did end up fighting at the back end of that month, though. You took on Victor Ankara. Not really a world beater, but a man that had a record of 8-2 with 8 knockouts, and he was obviously a banger. But you become the first man to stop him.
He was a break kid over, like some African who could punch a bit. So you can't take no one lightly in this sport. Even in journeyman, you can't take no one lightly. And this kid is just up above that. So he swung a few, but I was just too good for him.
Yeah, like I say, became the first man to stop him, so not too bad there. And that fight wasn't really the fight that you wanted, of course. Obviously, we mentioned, the bigger fight fell through. Yeah. You got the knockout win, but now you have landed a big fight here, Gary. It takes place in 2 days' time at the Brentwood Centre. No disrespect to the Brentwood Centre, but I feel like this whole show is a bit too good for that venue. It
is a bit too good for this venue, but listen, get me in a boxing ring, I ain't bothered. Get me in any ring, doesn't bother me. So it's big enough, but my favourite place to fight is York Hall. I would rather in there, you know what I mean? But I know it's not big enough. So, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. And in the other corner stands Johnny Garton, a man I'm guessing you know pretty well.
Yeah, I know Johnny Garton. He's a tough kid. I'm not taking nothing lightly. John's a good fighter. To get to this level, he has to be doing something right. You know what I mean? He has to be doing something right. So I can't wait to fight John. I actually can't wait to fight him. So I'm really looking forward to it.
And I've seen Garton fight a few times, and every time I've watched him, he brings the action. He likes a war. Obviously, the one loss came to Sam Eggington in 2 rounds, but you've undoubtedly fought at the much higher level. This is your chance to also win the British title, which is currently on the line and vacant. I'm expecting a great fight here.
Yeah, everyone's expecting a great fight. But if I listen to my trainer, do everything what I'm doing in the gym, I'm sparring quality fighters, and they're 2 in, 2, 3 in and out, and I'm doing good. So I've been at a higher level than John, a very high level than John. But I'm taking nothing from John. John's a good fighter, so I trained 100% for this fight. Trained hard, so I'm just there. It's business to me. I just want to beat him up, and it's business to me.
Have you ever had a chance to spar him at all, or have you just watched a couple of his fights?
Sparred John ever once. I sparred Bradley Skeete when I was fighting. Who was it? Was it fighting? I had one fight before against Joe Silker, and I was supposed to fight him, and he was the second sparring partner. He was the last sparring partner. He was like after Bradley. I'd spar Bradley first and spar him.
Okay. Now, I see this fight, like I say, turning into a brilliant fight. Like I say, he likes to slug it out. You're a good boxer, but I know myself that you can get down and dirty and have a war. I actually see you as the favourite, but I've spoken to one or two people that say they reckon Garton wins. I just can't see a way that with both of your styles that this fight can be anything but action-packed. I mean, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm not just saying it because you're on the phone. I think it's going to be a cracking fight.
No, it's going to be a cracking fight. A lot of people, listen, a lot of fighters say, my chat to a few fighters don't like me. A few fighters don't like me. And don't know why like that. I don't know why. But there's you have his own not saying what he's in. But if I do what I do best, do properly and go into it, I'll beat Johnny Garton. And that's the honest answer. I'll beat Johnny Garton. But I'm not overlooking John. John's a good kid. So I'm going 100%, and I'm going to do my job. But I know if I will turn up in that fight, John's in for a very, very hard night, and a very punishing night. I'm going to punish him.
And Gary, I want to get your take on a couple of other fights that's happening. It's looking like finally, after all these years, Khan versus Brook is ever closer. I mean, they're talking about early 2019. If that should happen, who do you have winning that one?
I have Brook winning that. It's too powerful. Time beats speed.
And another fight that's happening at 154. I know that you're the level above these guys at the moment, but a fight where you may have an interest in, or at least want to give your opinion. Asinia Byfield and Ted Cheeseman, brilliant fight.
Yeah, me and Byfield spar a lot. I'm good mates with Byfield. I know Ted as well. Sparred Ted a few times before, but it's going to be a really, really good fight. A really good fight. Byfield is a good fighter. He's a very good fighter. Ted's a very good fighter. So whoever turns up at the end of that night wins. I think wins. If Byfield turns up and boxes like he does, I think he wins. If Ted boxes like he did, he could win. So it's going to be a very good fight. 50-50 fight.
Yeah, it truly is a 50-50. Now, last time I spoke to your arch nemesis, Liam Williams, was back in August, and I asked him quite a funny question. I asked him who he would rather send a Christmas card to, Gary. Would it be yourself or Liam Smith? And he said he'd rather send a Christmas card to Liam Smith because if it was you sending him a Christmas card, he believes that you'd wipe the card with your ass before sending it to him. Is that true?
I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't. No, I would not. I'd put it on my table. That's a prize. Liam sent me a card, you know what I mean? So it'd be nice. Bad blood is gone. The bad blood's gone.
That is
you
good
know what I mean?
to hear.
If he sent me a Christmas card, yeah, I'll send him a Christmas card. So.
And finally,
listen.
Go on.
Yeah, it's not. I said it's no problem with Liam. It's no problem. It was business. It's over and done with. A few years ago, and me and him has gone on from there. He fought at world level. I fought at world level. So. Two of our good fighters, and that's in the day. We're boxers, and we leave it at that.
Yeah, well said. Two good lads. And finally, Gary, what is your prediction for Saturday night if you should have one? How do you see yourself becoming victorious?
I will win. However comes, what round it comes, I don't know, but I will win. And if I see a point where I can't stop, I will stop him. And I just think people might look at it, but I just think I'm levels above John, and it's down to me to show it how good I am. And I will, if I do what I've been doing, I'm going to show it.
Yeah, like I say, I've been building this fight up for a while to the listeners. I think this is a brilliant fight. I'm very much looking forward to it. And finally, Gary, just before I let you go, we caught up not too long ago, but have I left anything out? Is there anything that you want to say at all before I let you go?
No. That's all good. Everything's good.
Excellent. Well, Gary, listen, it's always my pleasure having you on the show. I wish you the absolute best of luck for Saturday. I'll see you there.
You too,
we'll catch up after.
Too. You coming there, yeah? You going to be there, yeah?
I'll be there cheering you on. See you there, Gary.
A spectacular performance. Okay, speaking of it now.
Okay, and this wraps up what has been episode 157 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Ayaz Sumra has been Ayaz Sumra. A big thank you to our two guests on this week's show, the former British champion Bradley Skeete and the former world title challenger Gary Corcoran. Both men are in action on the same bill this Saturday, and both men could even end up fighting each other soon enough. There has been a few pieces of news that has broke during our time recording this show. Derek Chisora has announced a management deal with David Haye. Who saw that one coming? Once again, Del Boy proves that he's a total nutter. Canelo has signed a $365 million deal with DAZN. Wowzers there. Isaac Dogboe will be defending his world title against Emmanuel Navarrete on the Lomachenko versus Pedraza undercard on December the 8th. And it's not being announced until tomorrow, but I'm 99.9% sure that Joseph Parker's next fight on December 15th will be against the subpar opponent Alexander Flores, a man who only has one loss, and it was to Charles Martin by knockout. That's really it for the news though. The prediction league currently stands at myself and the listeners tied on 63, but Ayaz has come from behind once again and is now leading on 64 points. Best of luck with your predictions this weekend, people. Enjoy the fights. Thank you all for listening, and we shall see you next week.